She replaced her uncle as a delivery driver for one day and accidentally delivered to a CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into today's story. She replaced her uncle as a delivery driver for one day and accidentally delivered to a CEO. Emma Brooks had always been a dreamer, but in the small, cluttered apartment she shared with her younger brother, dreams seemed as distant as the stars outside their window. Her life wasn't glamorous, far from it. As a waitress at a local diner, she barely made enough to cover the rent and keep the lights on. But she kept going, clinging to the hope that one day, she would open her own art studio and live a life she could be proud of. That was until the day her uncle called in sick and asked her to fill in for his delivery job. Just for today, he said. I'm too sick to go. You'll be fine. Emma wasn't sure how she felt about stepping into her uncle's shoes, especially for a job she had never done before. But what choice did she have? It wasn't like her tips from the diner were going to cover anything extra. So, with a deep breath, she agreed. The first delivery took her to a shiny office building downtown, a place she couldn't even imagine walking into on any regular day. The entrance was grand, with a marble floor and glass doors that opened with a soft swish. She was underdressed in her second-hand jeans and faded jacket, but she didn't have time to dwell on it. She had a delivery to make. She checked the address once more, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the name of the company on the door, Tech Innovations Incorporated. She had heard of them. They were big, a tech company with a reputation for success and a CEO who was often in the news. She shook the thought off as she pushed the door open, the sound of her boots echoing in the quiet lobby. She approached the receptionist, who gave her a polite but curious look. I'm here to make a delivery for Mr. Liam Parker, she said, trying to sound confident. The receptionist raised an eyebrow but nodded, directing her to an elevator. Emma took the ride up in silence, her mind racing. What was she doing here? She wasn't some polished businesswoman. She was just a girl trying to get by. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped into a sleek, modern office space. All glass walls and minimalistic decor. A man in a sharp suit was standing by a desk, absorbed in his phone. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his posture screamed authority. Emma froze. He looked important. A little too important for someone who delivered packages, but she didn't have time to overthink it. She walked up to him, cleared her throat, and offered a nervous smile. Hi, you must be Mr. Liam Parker, she said, extending the package toward him. The man looked up, his eyes briefly scanning her before he blinked in confusion. Yes, but I think you're mistaken, he said slowly, his voice calm but amused. I'm not Kevin. I think you've got the wrong person. Emma's face turned bright red as she stammered. Oh, I'm so sorry. I must have the wrong table. I mean, the wrong person. She was mortified. She had sat at the wrong table, thinking she was delivering to a business associate. She quickly grabbed the package back, mumbling an apology before turning to leave. But just as she was about to exit the office, she hesitated. There was something about the way he looked at her, something different from the usual cold business executives she'd seen in the diner. He wasn't rude, nor was he dismissive. Instead, there was a quiet curiosity in his gaze, as if he found something refreshing about her. It made her stop for a moment, but then the uncomfortable feeling crept back. He was probably just another rich CEO, used to people coming and going. No need to dwell. She quickly left, the weight of embarrassment still heavy on her shoulders. As she stepped back into the elevator, she took a deep breath, telling herself she'd just leave it at that. But she couldn't shake the odd sense that something, just something, had connected them in that brief exchange. The next morning, as Emma walked to work, she couldn't help but replay the moment in her mind. Her thoughts drifted to him, Liam Parker, the CEO of Tech Innovations. She wondered if he even remembered her face, or if it had been just another delivery for him. What would he think if he knew she was just a waitress, struggling to make ends meet? Maybe it was better that way. Better that she would never see him again. Little did she know, this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed. The next morning, Emma couldn't shake the feeling of embarrassment from yesterday's encounter. She had told herself it was nothing. Just a mistake, just another day. But as she walked to the diner, her thoughts kept drifting back to the CEO she had accidentally met. Liam Parker, the man she had mistaken for someone else. His face kept flashing in her mind. His calm demeanor, his easy smile, and that look he gave her, almost as if he was intrigued. It was a brief moment, but it stuck with her. Emma tried to push it away, focusing on the hum of the city around her, the smell of coffee wafting through the streets as she passed by the usual coffee shop. Work. That's what she needed to focus on. The diner was waiting. She had bills to pay, but she couldn't help the nagging thought in the back of her mind. What if she had missed something important? What if that mistake, that awkward moment, was the beginning of something more? She shook her head and pushed open the door to the diner. It was the usual routine. The smell of sizzling bacon, the sound of plates clattering, the chatter of regulars. It was comfortable, predictable, but also limiting. Emma had always dreamed of more. Her heart ached just a little bit at the thought of her dream studio, the art she wanted to create, the life she wanted to live. She forced a smile as she greeted the customers and moved behind the counter. But the thought of the CEO, of Liam, lingered in the back of her mind. Later that afternoon, as she wiped down the counter, her phone buzzed. A message from her best friend, Jenny. Hey, are you still coming to the art exhibit tonight? It's at that new gallery downtown. You should come, get some inspiration. Emma smiled at the message. Jenny always knew how to push her to follow her dreams. Emma thought for a moment. Maybe it would be a good idea. She needed something to get her mind off everything. Something that wasn't work or the constant struggle of everyday life. Plus, it would give her a chance to do something for herself. Sure, I'll be there. What time? She typed back quickly. A few minutes later, the response came, 7 o'clock. Don't be late. And dress nice. Emma chuckled. Jenny always had a way of making her feel like she could do anything. She had been there for Emma through thick and thin, supporting her when she doubted herself, always encouraging her to keep going. That evening, Emma stood in front of her mirror, staring at the dress she had borrowed from Jenny last month. It was nice, simple, but it was one of the only things she had that didn't make her feel out of place. She put it on, adjusted her hair, and looked at herself in the reflection. She looked good, confident even. She wasn't sure if she believed it herself, but at least she could try. At the gallery, the atmosphere was completely different from the diner. The room was filled with sophisticated art lovers, rich patrons in sharp suits and fancy dresses, discussing abstract concepts and the latest art trends. Emma felt completely out of place as she walked in, clutching her purse tightly. Jenny, of course, was right there waiting for her. You look amazing, Jenny exclaimed, hugging her tightly. This is going to be so much fun. Emma smiled, but felt her nerves creeping in. She wasn't sure if she belonged in this world, a world of elegance and luxury, a world so far from her own. They mingled for a while, chatting with various people Jenny seemed to know, but Emma felt herself shrinking with every conversation. That was, until she saw him. Liam Parker. He was standing across the room, talking with someone, looking as polished and confident as ever. The moment their eyes met, Emma felt a rush of heat in her cheeks. He smiled. It wasn't the smile she remembered from yesterday, the one full of confusion and surprise. This one was different, soft, almost like he remembered her too. Before she could turn away, Jenny nudged her. That's him, right? She whispered, her eyes wide with excitement. Emma nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. That's Liam, the CEO I told you about, she muttered, feeling suddenly awkward. I'm going to go talk to him, Jenny said, pushing her forward. You two need to have a real conversation. Trust me. Emma hesitated, but Jenny was already off, weaving through the crowd. Emma stood there, frozen, watching Liam from a distance. She wasn't sure what she was expecting. Maybe he wouldn't remember her. Maybe he'd just brush her off. But he didn't. He was walking toward her now, his gaze locked on hers, and Emma felt her stomach flip. Emma, he said softly when he reached her. It's good to see you again. Emma could hardly believe it. The last time they had spoken, it was in such a chaotic, embarrassing situation. But here, in this polished setting, it felt different. He didn't seem like the same person. Hi, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect to see you here. He chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that put her at ease. Neither did I, but I'm glad I did. There was something about the way he said it that made Emma feel like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just another awkward mistake. Maybe this was something more. As Liam and Emma stood there in the gallery, the awkwardness from their first encounter seemed to fade into the background, replaced by a strange, almost magnetic pull between them. They stood there, looking at each other, unsure of what to say next. For a brief moment, everything around them seemed to disappear, the hum of conversations and clinking glasses fading into the background. It was just the two of them, in this world of elegance and art, and Emma couldn't help but feel a little out of place. Liam broke the silence with a soft laugh, his smile warm and inviting. "I have to admit, I didn't expect to run into you here," he said, his voice surprisingly easygoing. Emma shifted her weight awkwardly, not quite sure how to respond. "Yeah, well, I didn't expect to see you either." She laughed nervously, still unsure whether she was dreaming or not. "I guess fate has a funny way of showing up," she added, half joking. He chuckled again, nodding in agreement. "It certainly does." His gaze softened. As he looked at her, and for the first time, Emma noticed how different he seemed in this setting, in this world of wealth and sophistication. Yesterday, he had been just a man at the office, someone she thought she would never see again. Today, he was still Liam Parker, the CEO, but there was something in the way he looked at her that made her think he wasn't just a businessman. Maybe he was just human, too. "You're here for the exhibit?" he asked, breaking her thoughts. "Yeah, Ginny dragged me here. She thought I needed some inspiration." Emma smiled, glancing around at the pieces on the walls, feeling a little overwhelmed. She wasn't used to this world, art shows, expensive galleries, the kind of life she had always dreamed of but never thought she'd experience. "I'm glad you came," Liam said, his voice sincere. "I'm sure you'll find the inspiration you're looking for." Emma felt a flutter in her chest at his words, something unfamiliar, but also comforting. There was no pretension in his voice, no judgment, just a simple kindness that she wasn't used to seeing from people like him. She glanced at him again, taking in the man standing before her, dressed in a sharp suit, his hair neatly styled, his posture confident. And yet, in that moment, he seemed almost approachable, like he was just another person, not the millionaire so everyone assumed him to be. They stood there for a few more moments in silence, just soaking in the surroundings, before Liam spoke again. "Would you like to grab a coffee after this? I'd love to talk more about art or anything really." Emma blinked, caught off guard by the offer. Coffee? With him? The man she had accidentally delivered a package to just a day ago? She almost wanted to pinch herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Sure, I'd like that," she said, her voice shaky. "I think I'd like to talk to you too." Liam smiled, the warmth in his expression making her feel more at ease. He motioned toward the exit. "There's a nice cafe around the corner. We could head there once the event wraps up." Emma nodded, feeling a strange excitement in her stomach. She wasn't sure where this would lead, but something about him made her feel like it could be the start of something unexpected. As the night wore on, Emma found herself laughing more than she had in a long time. The conversations with Liam were easy, his presence calming and natural. She realized that she wasn't just talking to a CEO, but to someone who saw her, really saw her, beyond the waitress uniform, beyond the small apartment, and the life of struggle she led. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she mattered. "You're really good at this," Liam said, grinning at her. "At what?" she asked, surprised. "At talking," he replied, his eyes twinkling. "You've got this way of making everything seem interesting." Emma laughed softly, feeling her cheeks flush. "Well, I guess I talk a lot to distract myself," she admitted. "You'd be surprised how much you can learn about people when you actually listen." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned in slightly, his voice quieter now. "I think you've got a lot of wisdom in you, Emma. More than you probably realize." His words caught her off guard, and for a moment, she didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said something like that to her before. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. It was a simple thing, but it meant more than she could explain. As the night came to an end, they walked out of the gallery together, stepping into the cool night air. The city was quiet now, the lights reflecting off the pavement, and for a brief moment, everything felt still, as if the world around them had paused. Liam turned to her, his expression more serious now. "I'm glad we ran into each other, Emma. I think there's something about you, something real. I don't meet many people like you." Emma felt her heart race at his words, unsure of how to process them. She had been expecting this to be just a random encounter, a fleeting moment in time, but something in his eyes told her it was more. "I'm glad too," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the sound of the wind. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. Maybe this wasn't a mistake after all. As they walked down the street, the chilly night air brushed against Emma's skin, but it wasn't as cold as it had been before. There was something about Liam's presence beside her that made her feel warmer, more comfortable, more at ease with herself. She hadn't expected to connect with anyone like this, certainly not with a man like him. They had only met by chance, but it felt like so much more. As they reached the cafe around the corner, Emma couldn't help but glance at Liam. He was still the same CEO she had accidentally delivered to, polished, sophisticated, but there was something different now, something softer in the way he carried himself around her. They sat down at a small table by the window, the cafe's warm light casting a soft glow around them. Emma took a deep breath, trying to settle her nerves. This wasn't just a casual coffee date. It was a conversation that felt bigger than anything she had experienced in a long time. Liam ordered coffee for both of them, and when he returned to the table, he gave her a smile that made her heart skip a beat. "So, tell me," Liam began, settling into his chair, "what made you want to be an artist?" Emma paused for a moment, not expecting such a personal question so early in the conversation. "I guess it's always been something I've wanted, something that felt right," she said, running a finger along the edge of her cup. "I've always been drawn to creating, to making something out of nothing. Art is my escape, you know? It's the one thing that makes me feel alive, I guess." She looked up at Liam, surprised by how open she was being. Most people didn't get to hear her talk about her dreams. Not in this way. Not without judgment or curiosity about how she could ever make it. Liam nodded thoughtfully, his expression sincere. "I get that," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I think we all need that one thing, that passion, to remind us of who we really are." His words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. They were simple, but there was something about them that resonated with her, something she hadn't been able to put into words herself. "But why tech?" Emma asked, tilting her head slightly. She had been curious about his field, the world he came from. "I mean, it's not exactly the most artistic career, is it?" Liam chuckled, the sound rich. "And easy." "No, not really," he admitted. "I guess I got into tech because I wanted to build something. I wanted to create things that people could use, that could change lives. But somewhere along the way, I lost touch with the part of me that wanted to make something beautiful, something meaningful. I guess that's why I'm here," he said, motioning around at the cafe and the art on the walls. "Maybe I need to remind myself of that part of me." Emma's heart softened at his words. She hadn't expected him to open up like this, to share something so vulnerable. He wasn't just a CEO, a businessman. He was someone who had lost his way, just like her in some ways. "It's never too late to find your way back," Emma said softly. "I believe that. I mean, if I can still dream about art and finding my place, then anyone can." Liam smiled at her, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're right, you know," he said. "I think I needed to hear that." The conversation shifted to lighter topics after that, but the connection between them felt different now, deeper somehow. Emma couldn't help but wonder where this would lead. Was this just a moment in time, or was it the start of something more? As the night wore on, they exchanged stories about their childhoods, their hopes for the future, and everything in between. It felt easy, almost as if they had known each other for years. But still, Emma felt a knot in her stomach. She wasn't sure where this was going, and part of her was afraid to find out. The world they came from was so different. She was just a waitress, struggling to make ends meet. And he was a millionaire CEO with everything at his fingertips. What could they possibly have in common? As they finished their coffee, Liam stood up, holding his jacket. "I'm really glad we did this," he said, his voice sincere. "I didn't expect to meet someone like you tonight. You've got a way of seeing the world that's refreshing." Emma felt her cheeks warm at the compliment, her heart racing. "Thank you," she said softly, standing up as well. "I didn't expect this either, but I'm glad we met." Liam smiled, the expression full of warmth and something else, something more. "Me too," he said, his gaze lingering on her a moment longer than usual. "Let's keep in touch, okay? I'd like to see where this goes." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Was he asking her out? Or was he just being polite? She didn't know. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, something good was starting to happen in her life. "I'd like that," she said quietly, meeting his gaze. And with that, they left the cafe together, stepping back into the cool night air. For the first time, Emma didn't feel like she was walking alone. As Emma walked out of the cafe that night, her heart raced with excitement, but also with uncertainty. The night had gone better than she had expected, but the reality of their different worlds kept creeping back into her mind. Liam Parker, the CEO of a major tech company, was far removed from the life she knew. He was polished, confident, and wealthy. She was a waitress, struggling to keep her dreams alive. Still, something about him felt different, like he saw something in her that she couldn't quite understand. They exchanged numbers as they said their goodbyes, and Emma couldn't help but feel a little giddy at the thought of hearing from him again. But as the days passed, doubts crept in. She hadn't heard from him. It wasn't unusual. He was busy, she reminded herself. He had a company to run. But a part of her couldn't help but wonder if maybe it had all been a moment of politeness, a brief encounter between two people from different worlds. She spent the next few days back in her usual routine, working long hours at the diner, going home to her small apartment, sketching in her sketchbook whenever she had the chance. Her art was her escape, but lately, even that didn't feel like enough. Her dreams seemed so far out of reach, like something she could never fully grasp. That was, until the unexpected happened. One evening, just as she was finishing up her shift, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey Emma, I know it's been a while, but I've been thinking about our conversation the other night. Would you like to meet up again? Maybe get some dinner this time?" She stared at the message for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. He remembered. He wanted to see her again. Her fingers quickly tapped out a response. "I'd like that." When Liam's reply came almost immediately. "How about tomorrow evening? I know a great little place not too far from here." Emma smiled to herself, the excitement flooding back. She hadn't expected to hear from him so soon, but she was glad he reached out. She quickly agreed, setting a time and place. The next evening, Emma found herself standing in front of a small, cozy restaurant downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was charming in its own way. The warm lights glowing from the windows created a welcoming atmosphere, and for the first time in days, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. As she walked inside, she saw Liam sitting at a table by the window, looking just as put together as ever. But this time, he wasn't surrounded by suits or tech execs. He looked like a man simply enjoying dinner, and that made Emma feel a little more at ease. "Hey," she said, approaching the table. Liam stood up to greet her, his smile wide and genuine. "Hey, you made it," he said, his voice warm. "I was starting to think you might be too busy to meet up again." Emma laughed, shaking her head. "No way. I couldn't pass up the chance to see you again." They both sat down, and the conversation picked up easily from where it had left off. They talked about everything: work, life, and even their childhoods. Liam shared stories of his upbringing, of how he built his tech empire from the ground up. Emma told him about her struggles, about her dreams of becoming an artist, and how she had never quite found the courage to go after them. "I know what it feels like," Liam said, his tone sincere. "To feel like you're stuck. Like you're living for other people's expectations. But you can change that. You just have to believe in yourself." His words hit her hard. She had heard similar things from friends and family before, but hearing it from him, someone who had accomplished so much, someone who had been through his own struggles, made it feel different. "Maybe you're right," Emma said softly. "Maybe I've been too afraid to take that first step." Liam leaned in, his expression softening. "Emma, you don't have to do it alone. You have your art, your talent. You just need to find the right opportunity. And I know you will." She smiled at him, feeling a mix of gratitude and hope. "Thank you, Liam," she said quietly, "for believing in me." He smiled back, his eyes twinkling. "I believe in you, Emma. I think you're capable of more than you realize." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter and easy conversation. It felt like time stood still as they talked about everything and nothing at all. By the end of dinner, Emma felt something shift inside her. It was as if she had found a spark of hope again, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Liam paid for dinner, and as they stepped outside into the cool evening air, Emma felt a sense of contentment she hadn't experienced in years. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, questioning her worth, but with Liam, she felt seen, valued, And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her dreams were within reach. As they said their goodbyes, Liam smiled at her. "I'm glad we met, Emma. I think this is just the beginning." Emma felt a warmth in her chest as she nodded, her heart filled with both excitement and uncertainty. "Me too," she said softly. "Me too." And with that, they parted ways, but Emma knew that something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, she felt like her life was finally moving forward. As the days went by, Emma felt like something inside her had shifted. The weight she had been carrying for so long, the feeling that her dreams were always just out of reach, seemed to lighten a little each time she saw Liam. It wasn't just the moments they spent together, but the way he made her feel, like she mattered, like her aspirations weren't as impossible as they once seemed. They met a few more times over the next couple of weeks, each time at a small cafe or a quiet park bench, just talking and sharing pieces of their lives. Emma found herself looking forward to those moments more than she cared to admit. Every conversation with him was like a breath of fresh air, something she hadn't known she needed. But despite the growing connection between them, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. He was a millionaire CEO, and she was just a waitress. Their worlds were so different, so far apart. What did he really see in her? Was it just a fleeting distraction for him? Or was there something more? One evening, as she sat alone in her apartment, sketching a new piece for her portfolio, Emma's phone buzzed on the table. She reached over, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Liam's name on the screen. "Hey Emma, I was wondering if you'd like to join me for dinner tomorrow. I've been thinking about our talks, and I'd love to talk more about your art and your future." She stared at the message for a moment, her mind racing. He'd been thinking about her art, about her future. That was more than she had ever expected. Quickly, she typed back, her fingers trembling just a little. "I'd love to. What time?" Liam responded almost immediately. "How about 7 p.m.? I know a quiet restaurant in the city that has great food and an even better atmosphere. I'll pick you up." The thought of him picking her up made her feel a little nervous, but also excited. She couldn't remember the last time someone had taken such an interest in her dreams, in her future. The next evening, as Emma stood in front of her closet, she felt a wave of nerves wash over her. She had gone through this routine countless times, getting ready for dates or events she felt unsure about, but tonight felt different. She wasn't just meeting Liam for a meal. This felt like something more, something bigger. She chose a simple, elegant dress that Jenny had lent her, something that made her feel confident but not too overdone. After a quick glance in the mirror, she took a deep breath and grabbed her bag. When Liam arrived at her door, he was dressed casually but still effortlessly stylish. He smiled when he saw her, his eyes lighting up. "You look amazing, Emma," he said, his voice genuine and warm. Emma smiled shyly, feeling her cheeks flush. "Thank you," she said, stepping outside. As they drove to the restaurant, the conversation flowed easily between them. Liam asked more about her art, about what inspired her, about the stories behind the pieces she had shown him. He listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, and for the first time, Emma felt like someone truly cared about her passion. They arrived at the restaurant, a cozy, dimly lit place with soft jazz music playing in the background. The atmosphere was intimate, and as they sat down, Emma felt like the world had slowed down around them. It was just the two of them, and the connection that had been building between them seemed to deepen. They shared a bottle of wine, and the conversation shifted to more personal topics: family, dreams, fears, and the things that kept them up at night. Emma found herself opening up in a way she hadn't expected. She told Liam about her struggles with her art, how she always felt like she wasn't good enough, how her family didn't understand why she wanted to pursue a dream that seemed so unattainable. Liam listened, his gaze never leaving hers. When she finished, he placed his hand gently on top of hers, his voice soft but steady. "Emma, you are more than good enough. You have a gift. I've seen it. I believe in you." Her breath caught in her throat at his words. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that before, so honestly, so supportively. It was a moment of pure vulnerability, one that Emma hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. The night continued with laughter, more stories, and a sense of comfort that Emma hadn't experienced with anyone before. She realized that, for the first time, she wasn't just waiting for life to happen. She was living it. And in that moment, with Liam by her side. She felt like she was on the verge of something incredible. As dinner came to a close and they stepped outside, Liam walked her back to her apartment, the cool night air swirling around them. "I've really enjoyed tonight, Emma," he said, his voice quiet. "I hope you know how much I admire you and your work. You're destined for great things." Emma felt her heart swell at his words, but a small part of her still hesitated. She wasn't sure if this was just a fleeting connection or something that could turn into more. But as Liam looked at her with that kind smile, she felt a spark of hope, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something beautiful. "Thank you, Liam," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm glad we met." He smiled, stepping closer to her. "Me too, Emma. I'm really glad we met." And as he kissed her gently on the cheek before saying good night, Emma knew that this was only the beginning. She had no idea where it would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. The following weeks passed in a blur of excitement and uncertainty for Emma. Each time she saw Liam, her heart raced, and yet, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was still something she wasn't fully understanding. She loved their conversations, the way they could talk about anything and everything, the way he always made her feel seen and heard. But deep down, Emma was still struggling with the gap between their worlds. She was a waitress, barely scraping by, while he was a CEO of a successful tech company, living a life she could only dream of. It wasn't just their different financial situations that bothered her. It was the fear that she was somehow not enough, that she couldn't possibly belong in his world. It was one of those days when Emma couldn't shake that feeling of doubt. She was sitting in her apartment, looking over some sketches for her portfolio, but her mind kept drifting back to Liam. She loved spending time with him, but the closer they got, the more the fear of inadequacy crept in. What if he was only being kind out of pity? What if he was simply indulging her, trying to be supportive, but he didn't really see her as someone he could have a future with? She felt her stomach twist as she thought about it. But just as she was about to let those doubts take over, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey Emma, I've been thinking about you. I'm going to a charity event this weekend and would love for you to join me. I know it's a bit last minute, but it would mean a lot if you could come." Emma stared at the message, her heart pounding. A charity event? With him? She wasn't sure if she was ready for something that formal, something so upscale. But at the same time, the invitation felt like an opportunity to see more of Liam's world. And maybe, just maybe, find a way to belong in it. She took a deep breath before typing back, "I'd love to go. What time does it start?" Liam's response was quick. "It starts at 7 p.m. I'll pick you up at 6:30. Don't worry about what to wear. I'll be there to make sure you feel comfortable." That night, Emma stood in front of her closet, feeling the pressure building up. She had never been to an event like this, never had to dress up for something so formal. She stared at the dresses she had hanging in her closet, most of them second-hand, none of them quite fitting the occasion. But then she remembered something. Liam had said he'd make sure she felt comfortable, that she didn't have to worry about anything. That simple reassurance gave her the courage she needed. She picked out a dress Jenny had loaned her. Elegant, simple, but it was the best she had. She pulled it on, adjusted her hair, and gave herself a quick once-over in the mirror. She looked good, not perfect, but good. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves as she waited for Liam to arrive. When he pulled up outside her apartment, he looked just as polished as ever. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his hair neatly styled, exuding the kind of confidence that only came from years of success. But when he saw Emma standing on the doorstep, his expression softened. "Wow," he said, his eyes lighting up. "You look incredible." Emma felt a flush of warmth in her cheeks. "Thanks," she said, offering him a small smile. "I'm still getting used to this whole fancy thing." Liam chuckled, offering her his arm. "Don't worry. You'll fit right in. Just be yourself." They drove to the event together, the city lights passing by in a blur, but Emma couldn't help but notice how Liam's presence made her feel more at ease. He was calm, reassuring, and for the first time in a while, she started to feel like maybe she didn't have to be perfect. Maybe she just had to be her. The event was held at a grand hotel downtown, a place that seemed worlds away from the diner where Emma worked. The lobby was filled with well-dressed people, all mingling and exchanging polite conversation. Emma felt a little out of place at first, but Liam stayed by her side, introducing her to a few people and making sure she felt included. As the night went on, Emma began to relax. She found herself talking to people, laughing at jokes, and enjoying the conversations, even though she wasn't used to being in this kind of setting. Liam was always nearby, offering her a reassuring smile whenever she looked his way. As the evening wore on, Emma realized something she hadn't expected. She was starting to feel like she belonged. It wasn't about the fancy dress or the expensive surroundings. It was about the people, about the way Liam made her feel. He wasn't just a CEO. He was someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who valued her. Later in the evening, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Liam turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I'm glad you came tonight," he said softly. "I know this world can be overwhelming, but you fit in here just as much as anyone else." Emma looked out at the city, feeling the cool night air brush against her skin. "I never thought I'd be here, in this world. I wasn't sure I belonged." Liam placed a hand gently on her shoulder, turning her to face him. "You belong more than you know, Emma. You just have to believe it." Her heart swelled at his words. In that moment, Emma realized something. This wasn't just about the life she thought she had to lead. It wasn't about fitting into a mold or becoming someone she wasn't. It was about finding the courage to believe in herself, and maybe, just maybe, in the possibility of a future with someone who saw her for exactly who she was. As the days passed after the charity event, Emma found herself in a state of constant contemplation. The feeling of belonging she had discovered that night still lingered, and the connection she felt with Liam continued to grow stronger. Every time they met, it felt like they were moving closer to something deeper, something more real than just a fleeting friendship or a casual fling. But even as the spark between them burned brighter, Emma couldn't ignore the doubts that continued to creep into her mind. She had spent her whole life feeling like she didn't belong, like she was always reaching for something just out of her grasp. And now, with Liam, someone so far removed from her world, she wasn't sure if this was something she could keep. She knew Liam was busy, running a successful company, dealing with pressures she couldn't even begin to understand. But even so, he always made time for her. He would call or send a message just to check in, and when they met, he would listen to her without judgment, without trying to fix her. He seemed to care about her in a way she hadn't felt from anyone else before. But still, there was a part of her that feared it wouldn't last, that their differences would eventually tear them apart. One evening, as they sat in a small cafe, sipping their coffee, Emma couldn't keep the question in her mind any longer. She had to ask him. "Liam," she began, her voice soft, "do you ever think about the fact that we come from different worlds?" He looked at her, his brow furrowing slightly in confusion. "What do you mean?" he asked, his tone gentle. "I mean," she hesitated, trying to find the right words. "You're a CEO, you have everything, success, wealth, opportunities, and I'm just me. I don't know if I fit into your world, and I'm scared that one day, you'll see me for who I really am and decide that I'm not enough." Liam's expression softened, and for a moment, he didn't say anything. Emma held her breath, waiting for him to respond, her heart pounding in her chest. Finally, he reached across the table and took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "Emma," he said, his voice steady and calm, "I understand your fear. I do. But I want you to know something. I don't care about the things you think separate us. I don't care about your job or your background or the things that you think make you different. What matters to me is you. It's who you are as a person, and I care about that more than anything else." Emma felt her breath catch in her throat at his words. She had been so afraid of not being enough, of never measuring up to someone like him. But here he was, telling her that none of that mattered. He cared about her for who she was. "But what about your life?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What about all the people in your world, your business, your expectations?" Liam smiled, a soft, understanding smile that made her heart flutter. "I'm not looking for someone to fit into my world, Emma," he said gently. "I'm looking for someone who can share it with me. And that someone is you." His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, she was enough. For him, and for herself. They sat there for a long moment, their hands intertwined, not needing to say anything else. The weight of the conversation had lifted from Emma's shoulders, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. Liam had given her something she hadn't realized she needed: reassurance, certainty, and a sense of belonging. As the evening wore on, they continued to talk, their laughter filling the air as they shared more about their dreams, their hopes, and the things that made them who they were. The world outside seemed to fade away, and for the first time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The following week, Liam invited Emma to a business event, a gala he was attending as a guest of honor. At first, Emma hesitated. She wasn't sure if she was ready for another night in his world, a world so different from hers. But after their conversation, after hearing his words, she knew she couldn't let her fears hold her back. She agreed to go, determined to be brave. The night of the gala, Emma stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress, taking a deep breath before stepping into the world that had once seemed so far away. She had been afraid before, but now, she felt something else. Confidence. Not because of what she was wearing or where she was going, but because of who she was with. She knew that Liam believed in her, and that was enough. When they arrived at the gala, Liam took her hand as they walked through the grand entrance. People turned to look, some with curiosity, others with admiration, but Emma didn't care. She wasn't worried about what they thought of her. She was there with Liam, and that was all that mattered. As the night went on, Emma felt more and more at ease in his world. She didn't feel out of place or like an outsider. She felt like she belonged with Liam. When the night came to an end, and they stood outside the venue, Liam turned to her, a soft smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I'm glad you came tonight," he said, his voice low. "I knew you would fit in perfectly." Emma smiled, her heart full. "Thank you for believing in me," she said softly. Liam leaned in, brushing a kiss against her forehead. "I'll always believe in you, Emma. You're exactly where you're meant to be." And as they walked away, hand in hand, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. She had taken a step into a new world, one that was uncertain, yes, but also full of possibility. And with Liam by her side, she felt ready for whatever came next. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's connection deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. What started as a casual meeting, a mistake even, had blossomed into something real, something strong. Emma no longer saw herself as the girl who didn't belong in Liam's world. The doubts that had once clouded her thoughts began to fade, replaced by the belief that they could build something meaningful together. Their time together was never forced or uncomfortable. It was easy, natural, and full of laughter. Whether they were discussing art, business, or the small details of their everyday lives, Emma felt like she was finally living the life she had always dreamed of, not because of what she had or didn't have, but because she was being true to herself. She had learned to let go of the fear that her past or her background would hold her back. And for the first time, she allowed herself to embrace the possibility of a future with someone who truly valued her, not for her circumstances, but for the person she was. One evening, Liam took her to a secluded park outside the city, a quiet spot they both loved. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the horizon, and they sat on a bench overlooking the water, the air warm and calm. "You've changed, Emma," Liam said softly, his voice full of affection. "When I first met you, you were unsure of yourself, afraid of what might happen. But now, you're different." Emma looked at him, surprised by his words. She had never really thought about how far she had come since meeting him. "I didn't realize it," she admitted. "But I guess I have changed. I'm not the same person I was a few months ago." Liam smiled, his eyes warm as they met hers. "You're stronger than you think. You've always been strong. I think you just needed someone to remind you of that." Emma felt her heart swell at his words. It was a feeling she had never really known. Being seen, truly seen for who she was. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said quietly. "You've made me believe in myself again." Liam reached for her hand, gently squeezing it. "You've always had it in you, Emma. I just helped you find it." They sat there in comfortable silence for a while, the world around them feeling like it had slowed down, as if nothing else mattered but the two of them in that moment. It was the kind of moment Emma had once thought impossible, the kind of moment she had dreamed of but never thought she'd experience. But now, with Liam by her side, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the days went by, Emma found herself embracing her dreams with a newfound confidence. She began to take more risks with her art, pushing herself further than she ever had before. She entered her first art competition, something she would have never considered doing a few months ago. And to her surprise, she won. It wasn't just the recognition or the prize that mattered. It was the validation she felt in herself, the realization that she could achieve her dreams. Liam had always believed in her, and now, she was starting to believe in herself too. One evening, as they sat together in a quiet restaurant, enjoying dinner after a long day, Liam looked at her with a soft smile. "You've come a long way, Emma," he said, his voice full of admiration. "You've really found your way." Emma smiled back, her heart full of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. You've shown me what it means to truly believe in myself." Liam's smile grew wider, and he reached across the table to take her hand. "I'm so proud of you, Emma. You're not just an artist. You're someone who's going to change the world." Emma felt a rush of warmth spread through her at his words. She had never imagined herself in this place, this position of confidence and strength, but now she knew that she could do anything. With Liam by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. As the night ended and they left the restaurant, Liam turned to her, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "There's just one more thing I want to do," he said, stopping in front of her. Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's that?" she asked, her heart racing with excitement. Liam smiled, dropping to one knee in front of her. "Emma Brooks," he began, his voice steady and full of emotion. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Will you marry me?" Emma's heart skipped a beat, her breath catching in her throat. She had never imagined this moment would come, but as she looked into Liam's eyes, she realized that this was exactly where she was meant to be. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." As Liam stood up and took her in his arms, Emma knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. It wasn't just about love. It was about building a future together, supporting each other, and believing in one another's dreams. And as they kissed under the soft glow of the streetlights, Emma realized that her dreams were no longer just dreams. They were becoming her reality.